Let me tell you about the last phone call that changed everything. It was about a month before the accident. I was in the middle of a tense quarterly review, my screen a dizzying mosaic of spreadsheets and data projections, when my phone buzzed. It was Sienna. I declined the call, my focus already frayed. She called back immediately. I declined it again, a spike of irritation shooting through me. Then the text came, in all caps. "Evelyn, I need you to call me right now. It's an emergency." I knew her kind of emergency. It was never about blood or broken bones. It was always about balances and credit limits. Excusing myself from the meeting with a tight smile, my heart hammering with pure frustration, I stepped into the hallway and called her. "What is it, Sienna? I'm in the middle of something important." Her voice was a practiced theatrical sob over the phone. "My landlord, he's a total jerk. He said if I don't have the rent by tomorrow, he's starting the eviction process. I don't know what to do. I've been trying so hard with my influencing, but a few brand deals fell through." I'd heard this story before, different versions of it, but the theme was always the same. A car repair for a car I co-signed on, a credit card bill bloated with charges for brunch and boutique clothing, an investment opportunity in a friend's pop-up shop that vanished without a trace. I was tired, bone tired. I was working 60-hour weeks as a data analyst, managing multi-million-dollar projects for a firm that demanded perfection, and the stress was a constant grinding weight. But the guilt, the deep, nagging guilt of not being physically present, of missing birthdays and family dinners for late-night work deadlines, always won. Guilt, I've learned, is the most effective weapon in a manipulator's arsenal. "Fine," I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. The fluorescent office lights hummed above me. "How much?" She sniffled, the performance shifting to relief. $1,200. I swear on my life, Evelyn, I'll pay you back. My next big brand deal is about to come through. I knew the promise was as empty as her bank account. But I also knew I couldn't handle the follow-up calls from Mom, the passive-aggressive texts, the family-wide campaign of disappointment. It was easier to just pay. It was a transaction. I was buying peace. "I'll send it," I said flatly. 10 minutes later, after I'd returned to my meeting, a notification popped up on my phone. A new Instagram post from Sienna. It was a photo of her, beaming, trying on a ridiculously expensive designer handbag in a department store. The caption, "A little retail therapy to beat the stress. You gotta invest in yourself. Je self-care, G luxury lifestyle." I didn't say anything. I just stared at the screen, a cold, hollow feeling spreading through my chest. I closed the app and forced my attention back to the data on my monitor. I told myself it's what families do. They help each other. I just hadn't realized I was the only one in this family doing all the helping. Now, fast forward 1 month, 52 missed calls lit up my screen, all from my family, and at the top, a new message from my dad. "Call us back now. It's serious." Serious. That word made me laugh, a hollow, bitter sound that echoed in the quiet of my apartment. Because just days earlier, while I lay broken and bruised in a hospital bed, our family group chat was a non-stop, glittering party. Not with concern, not with questions about where I was, but with picture-perfect, curated content from my sister's birthday, spa weekend. Sienna, my younger sister, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer, smiling in a silk robe, flashing a peace sign with champagne in her hand. The caption, "Birthday vibes only, manifesting luxury." Mom commenting underneath every single photo. "So cute. You deserve it, sweetie." Dad, as always, dropping his lazy one-character contribution, the thumbs-up emoji. And me? I was lying there with 2 broken ribs that felt like serrated knives, a dislocated shoulder that sent waves of fire down my arm with every breath, and a line of angry black stitches curving above my temple. My phone was silent, except for the cheerful chime of their celebration, a celebration I was supposed to be paying for. That was the moment I realised I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't their sister. I was their line of credit, their silent sponsor, their human ATM. So when Dad's text lit up my phone, urgent, commanding, "Call us back now, it's serious," I didn't rush to call. I sat there, still in my scratchy, demeaning hospital gown hidden under a hoodie, and I thought, where was that urgency when I almost died? Where was that panic when I vanished for 3 nights? They didn't need me, not then. But now the connection was down. The bank of Evelyn was closed. And for the first time in my life, I decided to let the silence answer for me. And tell me, have you ever felt invisible to the very people who were supposed to see you the most? If you have, hit the like button, so I know I'm not alone in this, because this story, my story, was never supposed to be about revenge. But sometimes, taking back your life is the loudest payback of all. The crash itself was quiet. As a data analyst, my brain is wired to find patterns in chaos, to make sense of random inputs. But there was no pattern here. No screaming tires, no dramatic, movie-style explosion. Just the faint, sharp crack of glass shattering into a million diamonds. The sickening, final sound of metal folding in on itself, and then the violent slam of the airbag exploding against my face. 1 second I was humming along to the radio, deciding between rotisserie chicken or take-out tacos for dinner. The next, I was hanging upside down, the seatbelt cutting deep into my chest, the coppery taste of blood filling the back of my throat. When I woke up properly, it was to the smell of antiseptic and the low, rhythmic beeping of a machine next to my bed. A nurse with kind, tired eyes explained the damage. 2 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a mild concussion. Mild. I'm good with numbers, but that word didn't add up. The pain wasn't mild. The fear wasn't mild. I couldn't even sit up without a surge of nausea and a white-hot agony from my shoulder, but sure, mild. They called me lucky, but as the hours bled into days, I didn't feel lucky, I felt forgotten. My second day in the hospital was a long, grey smear of time. A kind older nurse named Brenda, with a warm smile and comfortable shoes, helped me eat some lukewarm chicken broth. She fluffed my pillow and asked, "Is your family coming by this afternoon, sweetie? It's visiting hours. I can make sure they find the room." I stared at a water stain on the ceiling, my throat suddenly tight. "They're out of town," I lied. The lie was easier than the truth, easier than admitting, "No, they're not coming. I don't think they know I'm here. I don't think they'd notice if I wasn't." Brenda just patted my hand. "Well, you get some rest then. Call if you need anything at all." Her kindness somehow made the loneliness feel sharper. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. The physical pain was manageable with the medication they were giving me. But the silence from my phone was a different kind of agony. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket. With a groan fighting against the fire in my shoulder, I reached across the bed rail and grabbed it from the rolling table. 23 unread messages. My heart did a frantic, stupid leap. They know. They care. Maybe Mum's mother's intuition finally kicked in. I tapped the notification, my hands trembling slightly. It opened to the family group chat. The first photo loaded. It was Sienna getting a pedicure in a plush white spa chair, a smug, self-satisfied smile on her face. Mom had commented, "My beautiful girl, looks so relaxing, you deserve a treat." My thumb swiped, almost against my will. A boomerang video of Sienna clinking champagne glasses with a friend I didn't recognise. The light caught the bubbles in the glass. It looked so cheerful. I swiped again. A close-up shot of an artfully arranged sushi platter, all bright colours and perfect shapes. Dad had dropped his obligatory thumbs-up emoji there. Another swipe. Sienna in a sauna, her face glistening, captioned, "Sweating out the toxins, Astro Wellness." Another, a selfie with Mom, both of them wearing green clay masks. Mom's comment on that one was for Sienna. "Love making memories with you." I kept scrolling, a morbid fascination taking over. I analysed it like a data set, a 3-day timeline of their perfect self-indulgent weekend. And in that entire feed, in all those pictures and comments and emojis, my name didn't appear once. Not one person had typed the simple words, "Hey, haven't heard from Evelyn. Is she okay?" I sat there, propped up on pillows in my itchy hospital gown, the sterile beeping of the monitor the only sound in the room, and something inside me broke. Not a bone, something much deeper, the carefully constructed illusion that I mattered to them beyond my function. It wasn't just that they didn't notice I was gone. It was that they were living their best life, a life funded by my absence while I was living my worst days. And they were so absorbed in themselves they didn't even have a clue. The data was clear. The conclusion was inescapable. I was an outlier in my own family's data set. Irrelevant. On the 4th day, I was discharged. No driving, no work for at least a week, the doctor warned, handing me a stack of prescriptions. I sat in the hospital lobby for nearly an hour, feeling fragile and invisible, waiting for a ride share. I went home, still in the hospital gown under my hoodie, because the simple act of lifting my arm to change was an exercise in agony. I collapsed onto my couch and slept for 14 hours. The next morning, stiff and sore, I turned my ringer back on. The phone exploded, a cascade of notifications, 52 missed calls, all from the last 48 hours, and Dad's text sitting at the top like a summons. "Call us back now. It's serious." I called him. He picked up before the first ring finished, his voice a strained, panicked rush. "Evelyn, thank God, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 2 days." Sienna's card was declined at her birthday brunch. In front of all her friends, Evelyn, it was mortifying for her. Mum's card for the hotel got rejected when she tried to check out. Her phone bill autopay failed. "Did you get hacked? Is something wrong with the bank? I've been on hold with them for an hour." I let the questions hang in the air, a litany of their inconveniences. Finally I spoke, my voice raspy from disuse but steady. "No, Dad, there's nothing wrong with the bank. I disabled the cards and froze the accounts." Silence, a total breathless digital silence filled with frantic calculations and disbelief. He finally stammered, his voice a mix of confusion and indignation. Why on earth would you do that?" I told him the truth, each word deliberate, a shard of glass I was carefully laying between us. "I was in a car accident, Dad, 4 days ago. I flipped my car. I have 2 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and a concussion. I spent 3 nights in the hospital, alone, while you were all looking at photos of the spa weekend I was supposed to be paying for." The silence stretched again, longer this time, heavier. I could hear him take a shaky breath. "Evelyn, I don't know what to say. A car accident." There was a flicker of genuine shock in his voice, a brief crack in his composure, but it was quickly plastered over with his usual weak defensiveness. "But you have to understand, Sienna's been under a lot of pressure with her influencing career. That trip was important for her anxiety. You should have called us." "You should have called us." Those 4 words sealed it. He said it as if the issue was my silence, not theirs. My failure to report in, not their failure to care. That's when I knew there was nothing left to save. I cut him off, my voice cold and clear. "I'm done, Dad. I'm done being the family's emergency fund. The bank is closed." He tried to argue, his voice rising. "Are you really going to turn your back on your family over this? After everything you've what, Dad?" I interrupted. Everything you've taken? Yes, I am. I took a breath that made my ribs ache with a sharp, satisfying pain. You all turned your backs on me first. I'm just finally closing the door you left wide open. I hung up. The digital fallout was immediate and brutal. Sienna's texts were a masterclass in narcissistic rage. They started with outrage. How could you humiliate me like that? My friends were watching. You are so selfish. Then devolved into panicked, pleading voicemails. Evelyn, please, my landlord is going to kick me out. I can't pay my car note. This is all your fault. You're ruining my life. Mom's approach was more insidious. Her messages were disguised as concern, dripping with passive aggression. Evelyn, honey, I'm so worried about you. You're not acting like yourself. Can you please call me so we can sort out this silly bank mistake? We're all just very concerned. No mention of the hospital, no apology. Just straight to the problem like I was a malfunctioning appliance she needed to fix. I ignored them all. That night, an email notification popped up, a security alert. A login attempt to my work email from an unfamiliar device in their zip code. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about money now. They were trying to get into my professional life, my livelihood. That was a line I wouldn't let them cross. The data analyst in me took over. This was a breach, a problem to be solved with logic and firewalls. I spent the next hour in a methodical trance. I changed every password to a long, randomized string of characters. I enabled two-factor authentication on every account, from my bank to my social media to my pizza delivery app. I set up custom alerts for any withdrawal attempts over $1. I went through shared accounts, Netflix, Amazon Prime, streaming services I'd long forgotten I was paying for, and surgically removed their access, one by one. I was building a digital fortress around my life. This was no longer about being hurt, it was about protecting my assets, all of them. A few days later, a thick, cream-coloured envelope arrived, shoved into my mail slot. My mother's elegant, dramatic handwriting was on the front. Inside was a 3-page handwritten letter, filled with flowery language about the sanctity of family and how she knew my heart was in the right place. It was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation, and stapled to the back was the real reason for the letter, a notarized IOU contract. She was asking for a small temporary loan to get Sienna back on her feet, complete with typed-out interest terms and a space for a witness signature. To help her case, she had even included printouts of Sienna's overdrawn bank account and a credit card statement detailing almost $3,000 in charges for designer clothes, car payments, and a wellness retreat. She had written in the margin, "Just so everything is clear and we're all protected." That word, protected. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh at the sheer audacity. It was clear she only meant protecting herself from the consequences of her own enabling. I didn't respond. The final piece of data I needed to complete my analysis came the next morning. A fraud alert from my bank. Someone had tried to withdraw $900 from an old, dormant backup account using Cash App. An account I hadn't touched in years, one I'd set up for Sienna in college for emergencies. The attempt failed, of course. I had locked it down days ago, but it left a digital trail. The device ID and IP address matched Sienna's phone. She had gone digging in her memory. She had remembered that last possible lifeline and had tried to drain it. They weren't just ignoring me. They were actively trying to take from me, even after knowing I was hurt. They were rewriting the story in their heads, painting me as the unstable villain who had snapped for no reason, justifying their attempts to claw back what they felt they were owed. I realized it would never, ever end unless I made it end. But I didn't just block them. That felt too easy, too quiet. It would have left the narrative in their hands, allowing them to spin their tale of the ungrateful daughter to anyone who would listen. No, I needed to present my findings. I needed a final meeting where the data could be presented, once and for all. I waited. I knew they would come. Desperation is a powerful and predictable motivator. A week later, on a Tuesday night, they came. The knock on my door wasn't a polite tap. It was a frantic, insistent banging. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild rhythm I fought to control. This is it, I thought. Breathe in, Evelyn. Present the data. Don't let emotion corrupt the signal. I took one last steadying breath, unlocked the deadbolt, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. I opened the door. It was all three of them, a portrait of familial dysfunction huddled in my hallway. Sienna, her face puffy and stained with tears, radiating pure fury. Mum, her arms crossed, wearing a look of forced, righteous concern, and Dad, standing a step behind them, looking helpless and deeply uncomfortable, a man caught in a storm of his own making. "Evelyn, thank God," my mother began, her voice a pitch too high. "We were so worried. This has gone on long enough. You can't just shut out your family like this. We need to talk." Sienna pushed past her, her voice shrill with entitlement. "You ruined everything. My landlord is threatening to sue me. My credit is shot. This is all your fault. After everything we've done for you." I didn't say a word. I stood in the doorway, my expression neutral, and let them exhaust their accusations into the hallway. Their words washed over me, a torrent of blame, of self-pity, of a reality so warped it was unrecognizable. They weren't talking to me. They were talking to the idea of me they had created, the endlessly patient, endlessly giving utility. When they finally paused, breathless and expecting a capitulation, I stepped back into my apartment for a moment and returned with 2 pieces of paper. I noticed my hand was trembling, just slightly, a tiny betrayal by a body that knew the stakes. I steadied it. I held the first one out to my mother. It was her 3-page IOU letter, the notarized contract, stapled neatly to the back. Her face fell as she looked at it, her manipulative words now feeling cheap and transactional in my hand. Then I turned to Sienna and held out the second piece of paper. It was the printed fraud alert from the bank showing her failed $900 Cash App withdrawal attempt. Her name, the date, the amount, the source account, all there in cold, hard black and white. Sienna stared at it, her face draining of all colour. The anger vanished, replaced by the pure, caught-in-the-act shock of a child whose hand has been caught in the cookie jar. I looked at all 3 of them, my voice perfectly calm, devoid of the anger or tears they were expecting. It was the voice I used at work when presenting an undeniable conclusion from a data set. "This isn't a family," I said softly. "This has been a business, and effective immediately, I am dissolving my position on the board." I looked at my mother holding up the IOU. "Your line of credit has been permanently closed due to a history of non-payment." I looked at Sienna, gesturing with the fraud alert. "Your access has been revoked due to malicious activity." And finally, I looked at my father. As the door began to swing shut, my eyes met his for the last time. He wasn't looking at Sienna or Mom. He was looking at me, and for a fleeting second I saw no anger, no defense. Only the hollow regret of a man who realized, far too late, that he had backed the wrong side. And, as the sole investor, I'm cashing out. Then, before they could form a single word of protest, I closed the door in their stunned, silent faces. The solid, final click of the deadbolt locking was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I leaned my back against the door, closing my eyes, and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. The silence in my apartment had never felt so vast. And for the first time, it wasn't loneliness, it was peace. My world is quiet now. I spend my evenings reading on my balcony and cooking actual meals, uninterrupted by someone else's manufactured emergencies. I'm getting to know myself again, the person who existed before she became a solution to everyone else's problems. Sienna's influencer career imploded in spectacular fashion. It turns out it's hard to sell a luxury lifestyle when you're getting evicted. Mom had to get a part-time job as a receptionist. I don't know what happened to Dad. He never tried to reach out again. I moved a month later. New apartment, new number, a clean data wipe. This was never about revenge. It was about survival. It was about a data analyst finally looking at the emotional spreadsheet of her own life and realizing the numbers were unsustainable. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're the ones holding the matches. So I want to ask you, now that you've heard it all, if you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven them? Or would you have closed the account once and for all like I did? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever had to walk away from people you love, not because you stopped caring, but because caring was never enough for them, you're not alone. Hit like if this story spoke to you. Subscribe if you want more stories where silence isn't weakness, it's the loudest kind of strength. Because in the end, family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up when your world breaks. And no one, not even blood, has a permanent right to your kindness if they treat it like a currency to be spent. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing you'll ever do.